Hello, welcome to Center at Home. This is Matt Asner, and
Nava Paskowitz Asner.
And we're broadcasting from our home in Tarzana once again. Welcome everyone to another show.
We don't usually broadcast from the intimacy of our
we
bedroom.
We don't.
We have rain today off and on, and this is the only room where the internet works. So we apologize for the strangeness of the coming in from our bedroom,
the situation, yes,
with the kitties
There's
on the bed.
There's a cat there, and yes. So,
but it is called Center at Home.
It is called Center at Home, and that's what we're doing. We're at home, and
Yes.
someone's calling me already,
Encouraging people to stay at home and stay healthy. And
that's right. We're in week 3 or 4 of this quarantine.
I think
3 or 4, week 4, and it doesn't get any easier, but it gets different. And we've been having some interesting things happen at the center. So a lot of our stuff now is virtual. So we're putting it online, and we're doing things that way. And so we've been having some issues, some security issues, which we're really very serious about addressing. We had an art class. We had a situation with a yoga class last Sunday where some people broke in and took control of our feed. Basically, everyone hung up and got back on. And once you do that, you're fine. But there's a lot of nasty people out there who are taking advantage of the situation that everyone's in, which is everyone's using Zoom. So they're breaking in, they're hacking into Zoom, and they're doing pretty awful things. So the first one, I think they showed guns or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then last night we were doing an art class, and they broke in and unfortunately showed some really horrible stuff. And we want to apologize for that if anyone was on that. And we are taking the steps to
really try to rectify and bring up our security and our privacy settings. And it's something that's happening to everyone. And it's so unfair because I saw the excitement and the joy and the anticipation for the kids right before they went on the online class. And director Aviva Paskowitz, who was really just so connected with the children, and everyone was having such a wonderful time. And to have such a shocking, obscene, attack like that on kids, it's really unfair and unfortunate. And
so we are taking security steps.
Yes.
And hopefully the situation
it's something
will
that
be,
everyone's going through too.
done with.
Unfortunately, we've heard about it nationwide, that people are really people have nothing to do, and idiots are bored, and unfortunately our kids had to experience that, and we apologize for that, and we're doing the best that we can. But the overwhelming response was, don't stop.
Yeah.
Don't give up your content for a couple of weirdos.
Right, and we're not going to stop. And we have a couple things coming up. Sunday we have yoga, and we have tomorrow night we have our movie chat with Chelsea Darnell.
Yes.
So basically, we're asking people to watch a movie. Last week it was Groundhog Day, and this week it is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And basically, you watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and you chat about it with Chelsea Darnell.
Yep.
And that's at 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock tomorrow. If you want the Zoom information, please go to our Facebook page, and you will see it there. That's Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So watch the movie, and then at 7 p.m., you get to talk about it with a lot of wonderful people. And that's tomorrow at 7 p.m. So we're going to talk about something very important today. We're going to talk about rights. And we're going through something really unprecedented right now. There's a lot of different things that we're dealing with, and we have to deal with them in a very different way. We have to be patient. But there's some things that we really shouldn't be patient about, and that we really shouldn't, that shouldn't be taken for granted. And that is our educational rights and our rights as individuals, under the IDEA. And I'm going to bring in a guest pretty soon, and she's very special to me because Valerie Vanneman, when I started on my road down this path of, in this world, I started only in the world of special education. It was before Will was diagnosed, and I was kind of a babe in the woods. And people like Valerie and Janine Steele took me under their wings and really kind of educated me on what was important and the insanity of the whole thing. And really, they really kind of brought me up to speed on a lot of it. And I'll be forever grateful to them for that. And so we're going to talk to Valerie in a few minutes. We do have accommodations for Spanish questions. So if you have a comment and you want to ask it, you want to write it down in our comments, we will ask it. So we have someone, Maria Arias, who is a local advocate, is going to translate the answers into Spanish. And
also a special needs parent.
And also a special needs parent. She actually has 3 boys on the spectrum like us, I think. So we will we'll include. We'd love to include. You already have one actually, and so I'll look at that. And Shannon Penrod, love you guys. We love you, Shannon. We're really going to talk about this because really, I'm going to bring Valerie in and we're going to start just kind of chatting about it because I think it's important to kind of see what's going on here. So Valerie, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Welcome to my dining room.
Well, your dining room, our bedroom. So
here we all are.
Right. Well, I've got to say, thank you for educating me many years ago. I wouldn't be here without you. I would never have been here without your tutelage and counsel. I never would have been here.
And my hair would be completely white.
Yeah, that's right.
Stress.
That's right. And I just gotta thank you for that. We spent many days together in the early days at LAUSD, and you showed me firsthand the insanity of that situation. It really was an interesting world. And so I love talking with you because you always bring such wit and expertise to this subject, and we're really in a pickle, aren't we?
We are, but I'm wondering, Matt, if it would be okay if Maria could just go on and ask if there's anyone listening or watching who needs to have the information in Spanish.
I'm going to have her do that right now, and then we're going to be joined by her right now. We're going to bring her in. Maria.
Yes.
Can you talk to our Spanish audience and just let them know that if they have questions, they can write them down
or find out if there's anyone who needs to have Spanish interpreting.
Okay, so buenas tardes, comunidad. Soy María Arias, una madre del área local del Inland Empire, y quiero saber si algunos de ustedes necesitan asistencia en español. Por favor, pónganlo por escrito al host de este programa. Y si necesitan, tienen alguna pregunta, pónganlo en español y se le hará la pregunta a la abogada Valerie Banneman y se contestará en español. ¿Hay alguna persona que hable español solamente y necesite ayuda?
Okay. Thank you, Maria. I'm going to keep you on.
There's one question.
I don't think that's I think it's a full question though. Let's see. Okay. Gracias por la atención en español. Okay, so we'll wait for questions if they come. I'm going to leave you on.
Okay.
So
Thank you, Maria.
No problem.
It's the first time I've seen that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, how neat. Okay. So you can see
we're
the
learning.
screen. So
We're
we can see it
all
all together. How great. I see. Oh. All right.
We'll all learn how to do this together. Right?
I'm learning this with you. So Valerie, let's just start by asking the big question. The question at hand is, we're in a pickle. I believe it's impossible to say that rights are not being violated right now. I certainly know from our experience, everything has stopped, and we basically have become the teacher and and everything, and the therapist, everything. So what do we do in a situation like this? We're in a situation where we have no control, really. What do you suggest we do? Where are we?
I think there are three different things that families need to be aware of. The first that they need to be aware of, and it is the one that I am most concerned about, is that in a time of crisis, when you have pieces of law sitting around that not everyone liked or that they thought was too expensive, the crisis can be used to try and dilute or do away with those laws. In this situation, Congress has asked the United States Department of Education to make recommendations on April 26th as to what parts of our existing law might be needed to be changed. Given that there are many people who believe wrongly that special education costs too much and doesn't make a difference, we need every parent to tell both our state legislators, who've done some things that have not been friendly to special education already, as well as our federal legislators, to do not do anything that causes there to be any giving up of the rights that are found in IDEA. It is the most essential thing that needs to be done at the moment. People do not realize that before 1975, this law did not exist. And tomorrow, if the federal government decided to do away with it, it could be gone. This is not a constitutional right. It has never been a constitutional right. It exists because some wonderful people like Connie and Harvey Lapin and others really gave everything they had and more to get this law passed. People don't now understand what it was like before there was special education, but I can tell you from personal experience, it was horrendous. It is vital that this law stay strong and stay in place, and people need to be speaking out to make sure that happens.
Okay.
People need to get loud.
Yes, they need to get loud. So let's talk about that. What are the different ways that people can effectuate change?
Or support the existing law.
Exactly,
Right.
There is a national organization called the Council of Parent, Attorney, and Advocates. The initials are capital C, capital O, capital P, capital A, capital A. It has a website. It has on it information about the kind of messages you should be sending to both your state and federal legislators. And I would urge people, because I am convinced personally, having watched this fight for many years, that unity in one voice is what is necessary. And COPA, which is what we call COPAA, COPA at the moment is providing that leadership of one voice.
We'll put that on the website.
So
Matt, could I briefly translate that to the parent that is Spanish speaker?
Yeah.
Okay, so lo que está diciendo la abogada, basado en la experiencia que ella le tiene una urgencia de que los padres debemos abogar por los derechos de nuestros hijos y tenemos que mandar emails y contactar a los gobernantes locales, hacerles saber que nuestros hijos están siendo impactados. El problema principal con esta crisis social que estamos pasando es que se hacen a un lado las leyes que se fueron hechas para proteger a los niños como idea. Y sugiere a la abogada que participemos en la organización nacional que se llama COPA, que se letrea COPAA, que es una asociación de abogados, de advocates que ayudan a niños con necesidades especiales.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Shannon.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Maria.
And Shannon Penrod has given the website. You can see it on the screen right now. Please write it down. So, Valerie, there's some people that are watching, and I certainly felt this when I was younger in all of this. There are a lot of people out there who probably think, "Oh, I'm not going to be able to do anything about this. Why do I want to get involved in this?" And I mean, some of the people I think might think, "Well, I don't have the time to do this, or I don't have." I don't, it's just not part of their life and they're not going to make any difference. What do you have to say to those people?
Think what it's been like the last 3 weeks being your child's teacher, aide, and therapist. Think what it'll be like if that's what you have to do going forward. That's where parents were in 1974. If there was anything being done, it was being done by parents. And or the programs that existed were simply dumping grounds. If you thought the last 3 weeks have been hard, wait till this law is gone. If you've ever had time to give to anything, you must give it now.
100%. What is a bigger motivator than the frustration we've all been going through? We have 3 kids, Valerie, with 3 different, daily online curriculums that are so overwhelming and so hard to get them to do.
Well, if you think about it, if you didn't have that curriculum, you'd be doing it yourself as well. So your job would be twice as
hard.
Well,
that's the biggest motivator of all.
Let me ask about that because basically, IEPs are out the window right now. You can't. How can you enforce an IEP? You really can't. I mean, they're at home. And
well, let me talk for a minute, at least as of today, which is April the 10th.
Okay.
We don't know what's going to happen after April 26th. We're taking this one step at a time. But as of April 10th, 2019, the California Department of Education has put out something called Special Education Guidance for COVID-19. They posted it on their website on April 9th, 2020. And so if you go to the California Department of Education website and you go to their main web page and you look for school closures and services to students with disabilities, you will find what's been posted. They have said a variety of things, but they have said that the IEP that was in effect at the time of physical school closure remains in effect. And LEA should, to the greatest extent possible, continue to provide the services called for in those IEPs in alternative ways. Some districts have been fabulous. I have, in fact, had contact with a couple of people from some districts in Orange County where they have been fabulous in what they've done. Other districts have done absolutely nothing and have buried their head in the sand. Other districts have been slow to try and get something going and would prefer to bury their head in the sands.
But before you go on, I just want Maria to catch up with us here for our Spanish people. So, Maria, can you just update everyone?
Lo que la abogada dijo es que tenemos que abogar por nuestros hijos, porque si ahorita estamos teniendo experiencias en estos últimos 3 semanas que ha sido difícil educar, ser los proveedores de educación, de ABA, de terapia, del habla. Imagínense, esto era una realidad antes de 1973. Y dice la abogada que recomienda que hablemos y pidamos ayuda y que digamos que nuestros hijos necesitan aún tener las ayudas. Ahora, la señora abogada dijo que hay unas sugerencias, una lista de recomendaciones que están en la página del Departamento de Educación de California, las cuales dicen que se tienen que hacer todo lo posible para que las cosas que estaban escritas en su IEP sean implementadas. Pero eso es hasta el día de abril 9 que está en la página del Departamento de Educación de California.
The other thing that the guidance says is that LEAs, which is what we call school districts, it stands for local educational agencies in the law. And what it means is a school district to which you're attached. Maintain regular communication with parents and that they make efforts to ensure that distance learning is taking place. The notion of this directive, and the notion is that the idea, the fundamental law that exists is quite flexible. It doesn't need to be changed for us to address this crisis. Merely what has to happen is school districts need to be creative, flexible, and involved in figuring out how to provide long distance learning, and they should do so. We don't need this law to be changed. There's nothing in the law that needs to be changed because as it is written now, it allows for flexibility in these times. And the state has recognized that school districts ought to be doing that flexibility and providing education.
Maria?
Yes, so lo que está diciendo la abogada es que en realidad nada en la ley debe cambiar porque en sí los IEP son flexibles y que los distritos escolares que se refieren al LEA deben hacer todo lo posible para seguir lo que está escrito en los IEPs. Nada es imposible, tienen que crear formas, inventar formas de que sus hijos sigan recibiendo los servicios por medio de ideas nuevas y tienen que hacerlo de acuerdo a sus IEPs.
The second question that arises, of course, for many, 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 many families is the issue of the aid.
Mm-hmm.
Some districts have just simply decreed no aid can go to the home. And so nobody's getting services. In this guidance that came out yesterday from the State Department, the question was asked, is the local educational agency, is your school district stopped from sending people to the home to provide services as a result of this crisis? The answer that they gave is no. And what they say is that under the law, behavioral services, healthcare services are essential services that are able to continue to be provided despite stay-home orders. They also, however, say the following. Alternative service delivery options should seek to comply with federal, state, and local health officials' guidelines related to physical distancing with the goal of keeping students, teachers, and service providers safe and healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's happened is some districts have simply taken a uniform policy that they're not going to allow anybody to go into the home. How that's going to play out over time is not clear, given the fact that essential critical infrastructure workers under the executive orders that have been issued include healthcare providers and caregivers, which are including physicians, psychologists, mid-level practitioners, nurses and assistants, physical and occupational therapists and assistants, social workers, speech pathologists, and diagnostic and therapeutic technicians and technologists. Behavioral health workers are also exempt. Workers who provide support to a vulnerable population are also exempt. What the state directive then says is, therefore, if an individual determination is made that a student needs services or supports in person to maintain their mental, physical health and safety, in accessing the alternative options for learning offered, the LAA is not necessarily precluded from providing that service as a result of Governor Newsom's stay-at-home order. It is a difficult area. Some districts and some regional centers and some providers are continuing to send therapists into the home and do so under this exemption. And the home is willing to have them come in. This is a two-way street. There are homes, particularly with extreme vulnerability among one or more of the family residents who, in fact, do not want someone to come in, and understandably so. There are other homes who are falling apart because no one can go in, and there might be a provider who would be willing to go in. The blanket prohibition that Los Angeles Unified has imposed that no one can go into a home seems to violate this directive from the state. But here's the reality of our world. Unless someone at a leadership level at LA Unified were willing to take a serious look at what's going on and to provide some enlightened guidance in this area, it is not going to change its position. One could think about contacting Board of Education members for the Los Angeles Unified School District to ask if they are aware of the directive from the state and if they could, in fact, encourage Los Angeles Unified School District to provide more leadership, enlightened, very effective leadership in this area at this time. In other districts, a similar approach can be made if there is an opposition to this. But it is a very complicated question.
Okay, let's have Maria just catch us up.
So, lo que está diciendo Valerie está diciendo que la mayoría de servicios que se dan en las escuelas que están escritas en el IEP, como la terapia de comportamiento, terapia del habla o terapia ocupacional, deberían ser implementadas, deberían seguir siendo implementadas porque las guías que están ahorita vigentes con el Departamento de Educación están diciendo que deben de continuar y deben de seguirse. Y esto es el problema que muchos de nosotros creo que tenemos, que muchos servicios se han detenido y eso es el problema ahorita que está aquí.
Okay.
I next want to address a question that deals with 3-year-olds. If you happen to be one of those unlucky people whose child turned 3 when you were moving from regional center to the school district and now you have nothing, my heart goes out to you. I think if there is any single group of people who are most adversely affected by this, it's those families who have kids who are turning 3 between March 19th and the end of June. This directive that came out yesterday addresses that. It is very clear that under the existing federal law, under the existing federal requirements, you have a right to a virtual IEP, particularly for the 3-year-old cases. To the extent that districts are refusing to do the 3-year-old cases, I believe they are, in fact, violating the law. The districts can handle and can do virtual IEPs. I've been involved in several since this all started. They actually are sort of wonderful experiences in a very interesting way. Maybe we'll be doing more virtual IEPs in the future. But at this point, this directive is very clear that the U.S. Department of Education has not waived or exempted the requirement for 3-year-olds. IEPs must be developed and implemented. Again, of course, if a district simply refuses to do so, what are you going to do? Well, the only thing you can do is hope that due process continues to exist, give notice that you're going to try and provide some services and then move on. But at this point in time, the notion that they don't have to do 3-year-old IEPs is wrong.
Valerie, just remind people out there what document you're reading from, just so
Yes.
you know where to
This is the directive that was posted yesterday by the California Department of Education on its main web page. It's the Special Education Guidance for COVID-19 for students with disabilities.
Okay. And Maria, do you want to catch everyone up?
Yes. So lo que está diciendo la abogada, el impacto que tuvo la situación, la crisis que está pasando para las familias que tienen niños de 3 años que están en transición en este momento del programa del centro regional hacia la escuela regular. De acuerdo a las guías del Departamento de Educación de California, dice que los distritos escolares deben de tener juntas de IEPs en una forma por teléfono o por algún otro medio, pero que si se le niega a los padres el no tener una junta, sería prácticamente una violación de la ley. Y se espera que si eso es lo que pasa, pues podría hacerse quejas de incumplimiento con el Departamento de Educación por el medio de due process, por el proceso debido.
Okay, I just want to remind everyone we're talking with Valerie Vanneman, special education attorney and a good friend of Nav and I. And we're talking about the rights, your rights, and what happens during this time of quarantine. Elsa Feeney has a question. How do we get our kids technology to participate in distance learning?
You know, I've had an interesting experience with that recently, not in the largest district in the area, but in some of the smaller ones. I think that you need to be calling the director of special education for your district if you're outside of Los Angeles. If you're in Los Angeles, of course, we don't have any district-wide director of special education you can call. We have somebody who's head of some largely named unit. I would call in Los Angeles your board member. That is, you live in an area, identify who the elected board member is from your area, call their office and say, I want to know how do I get my technology so my child can participate in distance learning. And we need those calls to start going in so that folks understand that there's a whole group of kids out here who are being ignored.
So let me translate real quick. So la pregunta era, ¿cómo hago para que mi hijo o mi hija obtenga tecnología para participar en la educación a la distancia? La abogada estaba sugiriendo que contacte a la persona indicada del Departamento de Educación Especial, al representante o a un miembro del board de educación y que les diga cómo van a obtener servicios y educación y cómo puede obtener esta tecnología para su hijo.
Thank you, Maria. I know that people who are watching, please, ask us your questions. Use the comment button on Facebook or YouTube, however you're watching, and just ask your question. It's that simple. Valerie, I have a question for you. In your however many years you've been doing this, I don't want to date you or anything.
Hey, you can see me in my dining room, right? My plates come from the late 70s. What do you want?
Okay. Well, have you ever seen anything like this? I mean, it's so unprecedented and so strange, right?
It is indeed. It is indeed. It is strange. It is unprecedented. And that's part of the reason that I'm so concerned about protecting this law. Because in times like this, often folks who get harmed the most are those least able to care for themselves. And we can't let that happen. We fought too hard, too long. It took everything people had and more to get this in place. And we can't let it go away because we're in a momentarily, and I choose to believe that, had a momentarily bad time. This law was written with a great deal of flexibility in it, the kind of flexibility that would allow it to be adapted so that kids can be served. Sure, it's going to be different. Is it different to have your child there on a screen who may have difficulty focusing than it would be if they were in a classroom with someone sitting beside them? Absolutely. But think of what we've got. We've got the right for them to try and access that. We've got the right for them to be educated. And absent this law, they would be getting absolutely nothing. It is therefore imperative that families work together, as the State Department of Education has said. Districts and families need to be working together to do what we can to make sure that educational programming is provided. You know, what's interesting is that many regional centers have been operating virtually, to run the two words together, for some time. That is, their case managers, a lot of their personnel don't really work at a physical plant. They do a lot of billable hours from outside the physical plant. The technology is all there within that system to really make sure that IPPs continue to be done. That's the individual program plans for regional center clients, that services get delivered. And there isn't any reason in that system, because they've already virtually gone to virtual, that in fact, families can't be pursuing things that they need during this time of crisis, including extra respite time, including perhaps aid time that would not otherwise have been provided, including a range of needs that may exist. For school districts, you know, for general education populations, they've been using a variety of programs, Schoolology, et cetera, for some time. They're really set up to do it. It's a matter of getting it adapted and in place for special education students. There is a webinar that the State Department of Education did, and I'm sorry I can't give you the date on it or refer it to you specifically, where some really wonderful special educators from around the state describe the very creative things that are being done. And it's clear that even though we're doing it differently, good special education, let's stop calling it special, good education for children who learn differently can be provided even in a time like this.
Maria?
So, lo que está diciendo la abogada es que el programa de IDEA fue hecho muchos años atrás y que es flexible y que sí estamos en una crisis, estamos en momentos difíciles que tal vez hay riesgos de perder todo lo que se ha hecho en estos años, pero es flexible y es posible. Hay programas como los centros regionales que siguen proveyendo servicios como el EPP, los programas están trabajando desde sus casas. Hay gente que aún puede recibir servicios como respiro e inclusive durante este tiempo puede recibir programas adicionales. Y la abogada dice que tal vez las escuelas, los distritos escolares pueden hacer lo mismo. Va a tomar tiempo y sí hay los recursos, la tecnología, pero está en nosotros, los padres, que tenemos que trabajar con el distrito en conjunto para poder seguir educando a nuestros hijos durante este tiempo, durante esta crisis.
Thank you, Maria. Cheryl Gozman. Hello, Cheryl. She has a question. I don't know if this question has been asked, but what if this was our son's last year of transition program? Will he get to repeat the year, or are we out of luck? Good question.
It's a fabulous question. And one that I have been thinking about and looking at for probably the last 24 or so hours. The answer is I don't know the answer. I suspect it's going to be incredibly difficult. However, as a email blast that Newman Aronson and Vanneman LLP sent out, I think a day or two ago, said, we're advising people to document all missed services, everything that was missed along the way, so that if we can preserve this law, and if we can preserve the notion of compensatory relief, we can go back and try and pick up services. I don't think that you're going to be able, my considered opinion at the moment is it's going to be tough to get an entire year, but I think there may be claims that can be made for picking up some additional services. It is also the case that many transition plans are not very good. And you may have a claim just based upon what was in the transition plan that it really wasn't very good going in, and that therefore you have a claim for additional time of services. It's going to be an open question.
Okay. Now, Valerie, is that email available on your website?
Is it posted on our website is a fascinating question, the answer to which I have to confess I don't know.
Okay.
I
And then-
will get it posted on the website if it's not.
Okay,
That's
The
the,
website's now posted on the
Okay.
screen. So you go to Nav
So
and
let me translate real quick. So la pregunta era de una mamá que decía que su niño, su hijo está en el último año de transición. Preguntó a la abogada qué pasa cuando termina, estamos en el último año de transición y se detiene todo. Si había una forma de obtener compensatoria. La abogada sugiere que mantengamos récords de lo que se ha perdido, donde los servicios se han parado y que tal vez haya oportunidades de compensación. Tal vez no un año completo, pero sí tal vez, depende del caso, se pueda obtener algún tipo de compensación. Pero mantenga récord y hay información de cómo mantener récord, tal vez en la página de la abogada que está enlistado en este momento.
And I should be clear, the students we're talking about, but with regard to this particular question, are those students who are turning age 22. That is, students who've been on a non-diploma track and who have been in a program from 18 to 22 that was a transition program and who are aging out of the system either in June of 2020 or August of 2020.
great, thank you. We're gonna go. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Maria.
So, la aclaración era que esta pregunta es para algunos niños que están en el programa de transición, que es el programa después de los 18 a los 22, especialmente afectando a los niños que tendrán los 22 años en agosto y en junio de este año.
Great, thank you, Maria. We're gonna have one last question, and that's
Mary Reese.
Mary Reese. Hi, Valerie. Will compensatory services timelines be extended? That's a similar question.
That's actually a different question. And could I ask Mary to clarify her question? What do you mean? Are you asking if you already have gotten through one way or another compensatory services that cannot now be delivered, will the timelines for getting those be extended? Is that the question?
I'll wait for her answer, but let me just say I'll answer for her because I'm interested in the answer. Yes, with that, let's go.
Okay.
With that one.
Let's take that question. Let's assume that either through an IEP, a due process agreement, some other way, you got a block of, and let's assume it's 72 hours of educational therapy services. And they were to be used between, let's just say, pick it randomly, January 1st, 2020 and December 31st, 2021. Assuming we're in lockdown for 3 months, it's going to be hard to get those 50 hours in, perhaps. If you can't get them in, will you be able to extend them? We believe at this point in time, it's probably going to require an amendment to whatever the document is you have that provided for it. But we believe an amendment to such a document ought to be able to be obtained if you can show that the reason the services were not delivered was because of the COVID-19 lockdown situation. If you're asking the question of, I don't yet have compensatory services and I would like to get them, and will I be able to get them for a longer time in the future? I think the answer to that one is yes.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be looking at a lot of extensions of time, not waiver of times. None of us want to talk about waiver of times. We're talking about extension of times so the kids can get what they need. I
And
hope that answered it one way or the other.
I think so. And certainly, it should not be hard to state or prove that the timeline has been disturbed by COVID-19.
Right.
Right. Although, well, I'm not going to go there. Yes.
Let's just say
She said yet. I'm not going
she
there
said
yet.
Okay, Maria, why don't you keep us current?
So, la pregunta era qué pasa con mi compensatoria si no, debido a que no he podido recibir los servicios en los últimos 2, 3 meses, ¿qué pasa? Pierdo esa compensatoria. La abogada estaba sugiriendo que puede haber algún tipo de cambio al acuerdo que hubo y donde se especifica que debido a la situación y a la crisis del COVID-19 o de esta situación, no pudo el niño o la niña recibir los servicios y por lo tanto se puede haber un tipo de arreglo, cambio al arreglo o al acuerdo que hubo entre el padre y el distrito escolar. Eso se cree que sí. Pero si usted recién comienza a tener un problema y tal vez cree que recibirá algún tipo de compensatoria en un futuro, tal vez ese tiempo sí se pueda extender debido a la crisis que estamos pasando con el COVID-19 en este momento.
Thank you, Maria. I'm gonna have this one. There's one more question I think needs to be asked, and it's from Jessica Saucedo, and it's: will the process for obtaining our kids' conservatorship change due to the COVID-19?
Great question. Basically, as you know, the superior courts are in their own version of lockdown. And what's going to happen if we've got a child who's turning age 18 during the time when papers are not being processed in the normal way? I think the reality is probably once the courts reopen, if you have someone who turned 18 during this period of time, you're going to have to go in and try and get a temporary conservatorship if it's absolutely necessary. And I think in the meantime, we probably just aren't going to be having a lot of them granted. And we're going to have to work on the goodwill of everybody with regard to that if you can't get to court and can't get it done. But we're still filing. Let me be very clear. Having said all of that, I know that our office continues to pursue conservatorship matters. It's a question of when they're going to be able to be granted.
Maria?
Hay una pregunta sobre obtener la conservatoría del niño o de la niña. La pregunta era, ¿el proceso del conservatoría se extiende o cambia debido al COVID-19? Y la abogada dice que debido a que la corte está momentáneamente cerrada, cree que tal vez algunos cambios van a tener que dar algún tipo de extensiones, limitaciones, pero de acuerdo a lo que la abogada sabe, ella en su bufet aún sigue sometiendo peticiones de conservatoría. No saben cuándo van a dar inicio las cortes, pero ella aún está sometiendo las peticiones. Sí se puede someter peticiones en este momento.
Great.
Well,
Thank
you, Maria, and thank you for providing that incredible translation. I can't tell you how much we appreciate that, and we thank you very much. And Valerie, how can people? Once again, thank you so much. And how can people stay involved? Once again, let's refresh. What can they do to make sure that their rights are protected right now?
Everyone needs to be working very, very, very hard to ensure that state and local legislators, state and federal legislators, know that individuals with disabilities have a voice. And it's a voice that votes. It's a voice that contributes to campaigns. It's a voice that makes a difference in how people are viewed by the electorate. And they need to make that happen by letting those voices be heard. I've suggested, and you've posted the website for COPA, that people go to the COPA website, see the things that are being done by it, because we need a unified voice saying stop do not impact special education in the name of this particular crisis.
Valerie, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much, Valerie.
Thank you for inviting me. Anytime I can come on and provide any information, even for a few minutes, I'm happy to do it.
Well, you're
Thank you.
always one of our constant guests, so we'll always have you on. So I can't say
And
how
I'm really, really sorry that I'm not going to lose money at a poker tournament this year.
much. No. Okay, so
We're still gonna have it.
we're moving that. We are moving that, so we'll be talking about that. But it is going to move. It was on June 13th. We've extended it to August 1st. I'm hoping that we're somewhat back to normalcy by then, but you never know. But right now, it's August 1st. So we'll talk about that. Okay.
Thank you for everything you do and for keeping the community informed and for being there providing services.
Stay well, Valerie. Stay
And
well.
you all stay well and healthy.
Thank you. You too,
Happy
Valerie.
holidays.
See you soon.
Thank you, Maria.
See you soon. Well, that was Valerie
That was
Vanneman,
amazing.
and I'm so much smarter right now. I got to tell you.
No, I mean, she said so many things that neither of us even knew. And to have the opportunity to have Maria inform parents who, I go back to that time that we went to the event where there were all these Hispanic families, and their main question was, I get, everything that we receive, all the paraphernalia is in English.
Yeah.
And when we think of how overwhelmed we are as parents and how
Right.
overwhelmed the system is, just
Well, it's not a
seems-
fair system anyway.
Imagine if it
just
was in
becomes-
Chinese.
yeah.
Imagine if it was in a different language and that we didn't understand. And I'm so grateful to you, Maria. And hopefully we'll have Maria on with us every week. I would love that.
Yeah, I would too. We'll talk to her about that.
Definitely.
So we want to thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
We have a couple things to talk about
Mhm.
before we go up, but I think one of the things we usually have Gary
Dr.
Billadu
Gary, we
join us because he's kind of on the front lines of
love you, Dr. Gary.
of the COVID-19, and he's really overwhelmed right now because he's got
And his nurses are getting sick.
all of
He's
his
all alone.
He's all
I
alone.
keep telling him that's enough. Enough is enough.
So Gary's going to join us next week, and he's going to give us an update from the state of Washington. And Gary, we thank you, we love you, and stay safe.
Definitely. We had a wonderful Passover.
We did have a wonderful Passover.
Yes.
And
a lot of zooming in with all the different family members.
that's right. And we'll just show you a quick view of what our Passover looked like. There
with our homemade
the COVID-19 Passover.
Masks by Shelby.
That's right.
Our wonderful operations manager.
It was a very nice evening, and good time was had by all. And next year in Jerusalem.
God willing.
And so I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. This is the third episode we've done, and we're excited to bring this to you.
Probably not from our bedroom next.
Probably not from our bedroom next week,
Yes.
but you got to see our bedroom, and there it is. But we're excited about the things we're doing. We have a yoga class on Sunday with Shauna that you can zoom in on. You can get the details on Facebook or Twitter. We have tomorrow night, we have Chelsea Darnell hosting a
social movie chat.
Yep.
It's a social for everyone, though, and it's something that we all feel really kind of disconnected from our community, and the social aspect for our teens and adults is really important. So I'd encourage everyone to watch Ferris Bueller, which is such a fun movie, and tune in with Chelsea tomorrow.
Yep.
And Sunday is a special day for everyone.
Sunday is Easter.
Not us, but
Easter.
Wonderful
Yes.
other people who
The Easter
celebrate,
Bunny.
and we send you wonderful Easter
Happy
wishes.
Easter, everyone. And until next week, we'll have another episode on next
Yes.
Friday at 3:00.
Send us your questions.
Send us your questions, and the question stuff worked really well today.
Yes.
So
And I just wanted to leave the thought, any help, anxiety, there's so much anxiety going right now. Please, please, please reach out to Krissa at AsnerFamilyCenter.org. If she can help you in any way, we still have telehealth services available. So please reach out to us and let us support you.
and you can see you can what's our phone number?
818-302 0712 or www.edasnerfamilycenter.org, Nava or Matt at edasnerfamilycenter.org if you have any questions for us or we can help in any way.
So until next week, we say stay healthy,
Adieu.
stay inspired.
Stay home.
Have a good one.